Every year in the United States, Mother's Day is celebrated by families across the nation to enjoy and remember all the time, care and love granted to us by our mothers and maternal figures. But what happens when this holiday's sense of unity and peaceful safety is shattered by an unthinkable crime? In May of 2005 in Zion, Illinois, an unspeakable act of depravity and perversion would rob not one, but two mothers of their precious daughters. The victims, Laura Hobbs and Tobias, were still under the age of 10 and had gone to a familiar nearby park that afternoon. What happened to these innocent little girls? This is the story of the Hobbs-Tobias murder. Laura Hobbs, born on September 25th, 1996 in Texas, moved to Zion, Illinois with her mother and siblings after her parents separated not long into her childhood. The small town on the shore of Lake Michigan quickly became a beloved home for Laura, where she enjoyed the company of her maternal grandparents and made new friends, including Tobias. The two girls, aged 8 and 9 respectively, were inseparable, spending their time visiting each other's homes, playing near their houses, and riding bikes in the neighborhood. Tobias, slightly older than Laura, was a lively and spirited child. The two girls met at school and quickly became best friends, their bonds strengthened by their close proximity and shared interests. Crystal's family, much like Laura's, was deeply rooted in the community, and the two girls were often seen together at local events and gatherings. Their friendship was a source of joy for both families, making the subsequent tragedy even more heart-wrenching. On May 8, 2005, Mother's Day, Laura and Crystal decided to visit a nearby park to play. Their parents, confident in the safety of the neighborhood and the girls' familiarity with the area, allowed them to go unaccompanied. When the girls did not return by evening, their parents began to worry. A search was initiated, first by family and friends, and later by the police and local volunteers. Despite extensive efforts, it wasn't until the early hours of the following morning that Laura's father, Jerry Hobbs, found the bodies of the girls in a secluded area of the park. They had been brutally murdered, each suffering multiple stab wounds, 20 on Laura and 11 on Crystal. The discovery of the bodies marked a turning point in the investigation. The initial shock quickly turned into a frantic search for the perpetrator. The community, gripped by fear and grief, rallied together, offering support and assistance to the bereaved families, and an unfathomable collective wrath to whomever was found responsible. The local media covered the story extensively, urging anyone with information to come forward, while the police ramped up their efforts to track down the killer. Suspicion quickly fell on poor Jerry Hobbs, primarily due to his criminal history and the circumstances of his discovery of the bodies. How could he have known? Why was a known criminal allowed near these children, regardless of relation, in the first place? Suspicious minds played a nasty game, and Jerry quickly found himself at the center of it. Having possessed a significant criminal record, including previous charges of assault and domestic violence, which made him an easy target for the investigators. With no other leads, he was interrogated for over 20 hours and ultimately confessed to the murders, though he'd sworn many times he hadn't done it. However, this confession was later revealed to have been coerced under duress, with Jerry later recanting and claiming that he had been threatened and deprived of sleep by the detectives. He would later be quoted as stating, when asked why he had gone along with the coerced confession, "I found my daughter dead. They didn't need to try and break me. I was already broken." Jerry Hobbs' confession led to his arrest and the commencement of legal proceedings against him. However, his defense attorney discovered that crucial evidence had not been properly analyzed. DNA tests conducted in 2008 revealed foreign DNA on Laura's body that did not match Jerry's, strongly indicating another perpetrator. Despite this, the prosecutor initially refused to drop the charges, arguing that the DNA could have been from environmental contamination and were insubstantial. simply didn't matter. What was done was done. The refusal to consider the new DNA evidence highlighted significant flaws in the investigative process. The authorities were more focused on securing a conviction than on ensuring justice was served. This myopic approach led to the overlooking of critical evidence and the potential for other leads to be ignored. The insistence on Jerry's guilt, despite the contradictory evidence, showcased a systemic issue within the criminal justice system, where procedural correctness often overshadowed the pursuit of truth. In a twist that would unravel years later, DNA evidence eventually pointed to Jorge Avila Torres, a known serial killer. Torres, originally from Zion and familiar with the victims, had been convicted of other violent crimes, including the murder of Amanda Snell, a Navy petty officer in Arlington, Virginia, while serving on a joint base as a Marine. His DNA matched the samples found on Laura Hobbs' body, conclusively exonerating Jerry Hobbs. Torres' criminal history painted a picture of a deeply disturbed individual with a propensity for violence. His connection to Zion and the victims made him a likely suspect, yet he had not been considered during the initial investigation. The initial shock as his guilt not only vindicated Jerry, but also exposed the grave errors made by the investigators. Torres' subsequent arrest and trial brought some closure to the families of Laura and Crystal, but the long years of judicial mishandling left a lasting scar. Torres' ability to evade capture for so long can be attributed to several factors: his transient lifestyle and the fact that he committed crimes across multiple states made it difficult for law enforcement agencies to connect the dots. Additionally, his military background provided a veneer of respectability that masked his darker inclinations. After the murders of Laura and Crystal, Torres continued his spree of violence, undetected, leading to the tragic death of Amanda Snell in 2009, and several other attacks on women, until finally being caught and tried at the federal level. Torres' method of operation involved careful planning and execution, often leaving little evidence behind. His victims were chosen for their vulnerability, and his crimes were committed with a chilling precision that frustrated investigators. It was only through the combined efforts of multiple law enforcement agencies and the fortuitous match of DNA evidence that his string of crimes came to an end. The revelation of Torres' guilt led to Jerry Hobbs' release after 5 years of wrongful imprisonment. Jerry subsequently sued the authorities for their role in his coerced confession and wrongful detention, ultimately receiving a settlement of nearly $8 million. The case brought to light the severe consequences of investigative and prosecutorial misconduct and the necessity for stringent oversight in handling criminal cases. The Hobbs-Tobias murders highlight the outcomes of systemic failures within the criminal justice system. Had a system of proper forensic analysis been in place, the dangers of coerced confessions and the critical need for justice system reforms would not have been needed. Had anyone cared more from the start, the case as it unfolded never would have happened to begin with. To this day, the memory of Laura Hobbs and Crystal Tobias continue to fill the hearts of their families and community, forever leaving a haunting shadow over Zion itself and the need for vigilance and integrity in the pursuit of justice. If you enjoyed this video, kindly leave a like and subscribe. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.